Hi everyone, welcome to season 2 of Wish I Knew That, a podcast where we dive into the topic of career outside law, navigating career pivots, and tackling workplace challenges. I am your host Preeti, and in today's episode, we're going to be discussing why Gen Z has such a bad reputation at work. Today, I'm joined by Raja Ganapathy, who brings in a wealth of experience from venture capital and brand building with his unique perspective at the intersection of marketing, entrepreneurship, and growth. Raja has so much to share with us all today. So I'll stop here and let Raja tell us more.
Thank you, Preeti, for having me. I must confess, you had me when you said, when you wrote to me saying, I want you to speak about Gen Z. I was like, are you sure you got the right person? Because I'm a couple of decades away from being a Gen Z myself. But super interesting topic, very current, very topical. And at least from my perspective, I would say that, I currently work with Gen Z founders. I have Gen Z folks in my team. We sell, many of our portfolio companies sell to Gen Z as a target audience. So this is, and of course, you would have seen all the talk about how big a market Gen Z is and is going to be. So relevant from a work perspective, relevant from a personal perspective. I have a daughter who's bang in the middle of that age group. So I meet her friends. And so this is super relevant personally and for work. So very excited to talk to you and learn something from you. You are a Gen Z yourself. So.
Excited. I'm excited too. I have some numbers in front of me which I want to read out and set some context.
Sure.
So as you said, how big this total addressable market is. So Indian Gen Z is 377 million strong. And 1 out of 4 Gen Z is already part of the workforce today. So hence I think there's a reason that there's no single day you don't hear something around Gen Z at workplace and how annoying they are, which I don't completely buy, but that's the general sentiment. And what stood out to me was when you said you got the right person. I think you're the right person because you've seen millennials, you've seen Gen Z. So I think your opinion is not going to be very one-sided. It's going to be a balanced conversation.
I hope so.
It's going to be a balanced conversation. And you can actually break or deny or confirm these stereotypes that are associated with Gen Z today. What stood out to me is that, Raja, before starting Spring, you were at Sequoia Capital for more than a decade. I think no Gen Z could ever replicate that kind of career trajectory you have.
That's true. Actually, I think I started up when I was 45, after working for almost 24 years in corporate environments. And to me personally, it was a huge, even to break the shackles and leave a very renowned firm. I must confess to you, I had a panic attack in the year after I quit. Woke up one day in Bangalore, actually in a hotel room, sweating in the middle of the night, and I couldn't figure out what happened. And then I realized it was a panic attack, and it was brought on by actually leaving a comfort zone and stepping out. And I think that's a huge difference between, say, the world I come from and the environment I'm used to versus Gen Z. Is that I will one day become so uncool that I will only have the company of my peers. That's going to be a terrible day in my life.
I think that's a very good segue into this conversation. There was this LinkedIn post I came across. It was for hiring an investment analyst. I'll read out the relevant part of that post. Please apply only if you're dedicated to work, to make something big, and not in a Gen Z mindset of working. Investments is an old school business, not some work-life balance stint. Thanks. I think one of the stereotypes associated with Gen Z is that Gen Z don't have career ambitions. They don't take their career seriously as you or the other generations in past did. What are your thoughts on all of this?
So I'll respond to that post, and I don't know who wrote this. I really hope it's not one of my friends from the investment world, but nevertheless, I'm just going to respond to the content. So my view is, I think it's a good thing. I think if someone has said this, it's a good thing. I like it when founders and business leaders say, come and join us and you won't have a life. I like it because say it up front.
Yeah.
Just make it very clear who you are. And I think that creates self-selection. And it tells people, hey, this is the culture in the organization. We're going to make you work 6 days a week. We're going to call you at odd hours. We're going to make sure you don't have a life outside work. and come and join us. So I think it tells people, yeah, if you're not interested in this, don't work here. I think, in my opinion, it's a good thing. Just put out who you are right out there so that people know, people have no surprises when they come. And so that's one, slightly, I would say, offbeat response to the post. It's a point number one. Point number two is, personally, I don't agree at all. I think you have to win the hearts of your team. I think you have to win the hearts of your audience. You have to win the hearts of your consumer. I think that's a universal truth. That's not changed. Generations may have changed, but you have to win the heart of someone. You can't buy their heart. You can't throw money at this problem. You have to win people's heart. I think the best organizations in the world, not surprisingly, have the best culture as well. So you have a certain kind of a culture. I think it shows. I think people will then decide, do I want to be a part of this company or not? I'll give you a very strange example. Many years back, when I was in the US, and we were actually, me and my co-founders, and we were jumping from meeting to meeting. So every meeting would get over, and the last 5 minutes, one of us would, discreetly open our car taxi app so that we could book the cab for the next meeting.
Yeah.
And invariably, one of the people on the other side would say, hey, don't book Uber. And this happened when the whole negativity around Uber was at its peak. Now, there is, in my opinion, no difference between Uber and Lyft in the US as a product.
Yeah.
They're identical. They're both fabulous products. In many ways, Uber, I thought, was a pioneer in mobility, right? But why is this person saying it? And the person who's saying it has no stakes in this matter. Both these companies are US companies which have raised foreign capital. So there's nothing to distinguish between these companies. But the only feature you have to distinguish is culture. So here is a consumer saying, I will choose a car mobility, a mobility solution on the basis of the culture of this organization, because they, because I don't like what they stand for.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's going to happen increasingly.
Yeah.
And I think that's happening in India.
Yeah.
I think consumers are asking this question, saying, what's in your product? Is the back of the pack valid?
Yeah.
What kind of an organization are you? Who are you as a founder? So if you're a bad person as a founder, I think consumers are now saying, I don't want to buy your product.
Yeah.
It's a very strange world, right?
Yeah.
And I feel Gen Z is driving this.
Yeah.
I feel that their sense of moral and ethic is way superior to my generation. I think this is a good thing from this. So coming back to your LinkedIn post, if I was speaking to Gen Zs that I know, I would say, please don't apply here. You don't need a job like this. I think there are jobs and there are jobs. And you can choose the organization you want to work with. You must have a life outside work, because I strongly believe that a life outside work makes work superior, makes your productivity better. And at a very simple, at a very human level, it's wrong to say, I'll take away your life when you come and join me at work.
Yeah.
I think just simply wrong.
Yeah. I think my only problem with the post was that it was sort of labeling Gen Z as like a lazy generation.
Oh yeah, I missed that line. I missed that line. You're absolutely right. I mean,
which is not true. I think it's a misleading statement that way. People say like, oh, you guys have like a European mindset of working, which again is not very true. Like, if I'm excited about something, I'll put my like I'll hustle and grind for that kind of work. But if I'm not excited about it, I'll leave it and just be like open to it, like open about it.
I think you've hit the hammer on the nail. Absolutely right. That's what I said about winning people's hearts.
Yeah.
I think it's always easy to blame the other person and say, hey, they're not excited, they're not working hard. I think we should ask ourselves, what are we doing to make them excited? What are we doing to draw them in? And like I said, this is true of an employer. This is true if you're a founder selling to Gen Z. The rules are the same. You need to excite them. You need to get them into your fold. And all my experience so far tells me that if you do it, they are the smartest generation I've seen in my life. And I give you the reasons for it. It's not just because my daughter is Gen Z and she will force me to say it. It's also because of the reasons I said, because of the connected world, because of the access to knowledge. They have learned more. They have access to everything in the world on their fingertips. And I feel that makes them smarter. Now, they are absolutely capable of working harder. I mean, I think it's foolish to say they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, they have more energy in the tank at the very least, right? I also find that the Gen Z that I meet is the most optimistic generation I've ever seen. And that's also a function of the macroeconomic environment we are in, right?
Uh, the second stereotype that is associated with Gen Z is that Gen Z doesn't want to like get a cool tech job. They don't want to like get into like fancy careers like strategy consulting at MBB. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, they're very happy doing their own hustle, like do whatever they like, and just be like content with that.
Again, I think this is coming. The stereotype is actually created by people like me, who come from a world where there was less optimism, there were lesser opportunities, where you get a job and then you have to work at that job for decades and climb up the corporate ladder, and there is no other choice in this world. I think that has changed fundamentally, and I think this is our stereotype. It's not. I mean, we shouldn't hang it on Gen Z. I feel that there is way more optimism in India. There are way more opportunities. And obviously a Gen Z who grows up today sees that, right? Sees the opportunity, connects to the optimism. So their view on a job and a career is very different from what it used to be.
Yeah.
A job is no longer, like many of my peers used to describe a job as golden handcuffs. That's so sad, right? I mean, it shouldn't be that way. Ideally you should get paid for doing something you like. Now, if that does not happen, then obviously you should find something else. That's number one. Number two is, as I said, maybe as you're working, you discover something you want to do. I mean, when you spoke to me, you spoke about, you gave up being a lawyer because you found the whole space of content creation amazing. I mean, I was so impressed.
Yeah.
Now, maybe 20 years back, if you had spoken to me, and I might have, if I was your peer, I would have said, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because, you need a steady income. Today, my instant reaction was, that's amazing. Please go and follow your dreams. Examples of people who have followed their dreams and succeeded.
Yeah.
I feel this whole culture of thinking needs to change.
Yeah.
It needs to change in our generation. I feel Gen Z works very hard when they want to. They need to be excited. They need to believe in what you're building.
Yep.
And they reject this concept of a job for life.
Yep.
Now, just think about it, right? I've been fortunate for the last 15 or 16 years. I end up going to San Francisco once a year at least. And I would actually recommend it to everyone. Like, if you have a chance to go and spend some time in the valley, please do. Simply because it's a culture that encourages failure. It supports failure. It allows you to take risks. There is no one way to success. I'll give you another simple example. When we began Spring, in 2018, we actually spent 2 weeks in the valley, all three of us. We took time off from work. We were still serving notice period. And we went to SF and just met people, founders, investors, people who are 1 or 2 degrees removed from us. And we just bounced the idea of Spring. It's remarkable. Halfway, this was almost a framework of every conversation. The person would listen, no interruption. 30 minutes in, they would say, hey, it's a very interesting idea. It's very unique. I have never heard of anything like this in my life. And when the first time it happened, my instant reaction was, oh my God, that's negative, right? The person meant it as a compliment. They love it when you break new ground. They love it when you take risks. 2 days back, I was on a call with a potential investor, and he said the same thing all over again. He said, this is amazing. This is super unique. You're doing something that I've never heard of, and I'd love to be a part of it. I think it's just, and I don't know why, I keep thinking, why does it happen in SF so much? Even within the US, SF is unique. And now if you look at the powerhouse of talent SF is, the amount of value that those companies have created, it happened because of this culture. It happens because people encourage you to take risks. And I would say the same, like if there is a young member of our team who says, hey, I want to take a break for a year, I would be extremely supportive. And we have been. So the stereotype of them not working, them not being career conscious is a stereotype that we have created, and we have done it because it suits our purpose. Large companies want people to come in like drones, work 10, 12 hours a day, work preferably 6 days a week. For what? To make you rich?
Yeah.
They don't want to do it. You have to give them a reason for them to be excited and passionate about their work. And I think, if, like I said, if you can get paid for doing something you like, why not?
Nothing like it. Yep. Talking about X, I came across this tweet on X. So someone has shared like an email that his Gen Z employee has written to him. So just read out that email. It says, "Hi Siddharth, I'll be on leave on 8th November 2024. Bye." Period. I think it's such a nonchalant way of saying like I'll be on leave, which is not so welcomed in like a traditional corporate environment, especially in India. What are your thoughts on this?
Um,
So I think Gen Z is bringing back the sick day. Like mental health days are like normal. Sick leave is normal now.
Yeah, I feel, to be honest with you, I've suffered for 24 years in corporate environments. I hate that word. I just hate it. I hate stiffness. I hate the protocols that, it's almost like the superstitions that we have in India. Protocols in corporate worlds are like superstitions. Why do you have to wear those clothes? It doesn't even make sense to wear formal clothes in a country like India, right? It's stupid.
Yep.
Why do I have to? I mean, I won't have any problems if someone sent me an email like that. Because I'm like, don't waste my time. I think it's a no-nonsense attitude. It's if the person is allowed to take sick leave, if the person is allowed to take a day off, why does this person have to explain himself or herself to me?
But not a lot of people buy this. Like I remember working at a law firm, and I don't think I would write such an email ever. Like I would be like,
I mean, it is extreme. It's extreme and it's funny. But I think the point is that I think there is a casualization of the workforce, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, I've seen sometimes people using war-like analogies for work, and I hate it. Come on, people die in wars, man. Don't say, oh, we are like do or die, go big or go home. That's bullshit. You're building a company. This is a commercial enterprise. You're making money. Just have a sense of balance. I think the seriousness. I feel that there is a nice attitude that Gen Zs have about not taking themselves seriously. I think we should learn from it. I think the older generation, at least speaking for us, we take ourselves way too seriously. And I think it's stupid. I mean, look at it like dispassionately, right? Well, your example is funny and extreme, but I think nonchalance and not taking yourself too seriously and being no nonsense is not such a bad thing. I think there's something to learn for us. I had a boss many years back. He was very different from a typical corporate boss, and I learned a lot from him. And he once told me, anybody asks you for leave, don't say no, man. Because they'll find a way to take the leave. Someone wants leave, they'll take it.
Yeah. So this was his advice to you when you were like rising up the ranks?
Yeah. He was like, don't be so, don't be so caught up in your work. They may not give you the real reason, but they have a reason. And if they don't want to work, they won't work. There's no point bringing someone against their will into work, right? And I'll always remember that.
Okay, so this another stereotype associated with Gen Z is that Gen Z doesn't understand business. And 1 in 6 companies do not want to hire Gen Z as they are hardest to work with. I have some points written which is like a sentiment echoed across organization. They say that Gen Z is widely considered an employer's nightmare. Gen Z is entitled. Gen Z is easily offended. Gen Z lacks motivation, communication, work ethics. Gen Z is unable to handle feedback. Do you work with Gen Z?
I do, and I think what you're describing is actually human beings. Right? Like I said, human beings are evolved. I just feel just read one or two of those statements again.
Employer's nightmare. Unable to handle feedback.
I mean, I can't even imagine saying employer's nightmare given the quality of people I have worked with in my life. Maybe, in Sequoia, I used to run the analyst program, and I met some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Many of them are friends today. Many of them have founded amazing companies. Many of them have joined VC firms. Many of them have tasted global success. Now, this is a particular kind of a Gen Z. But I have seen them work as hard as anybody in this world. They're very driven, they're very passionate. Um, I think there are more questions than answers for Gen Zs today. I think that's what's driving a lot of this stereotype. You know, they have more questions to ask. I grew up in an environment where my teacher used to say, "Don't ask questions."
Yeah.
Right? I'm telling you, so I'm right.
Take my word for
Take
it.
my word for it. And the Gen Z is not willing to take your word for it.
Yeah.
Why should I do this? Why should I come to office 5 days a week? It's a
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah.
Why should anyone come to office 5 days a week?
That's
you are,
archaic.
unless you are in a sector like healthcare, or healthcare services, where you have to be physically present, or you are in a factory floor. No, that happens. And those are career choices you have to make. But if not, why can't I do something on Zoom? Why do I have to come? Like, I've embraced Zoom in the last 4 years. And my first meeting with a founder is usually on Zoom.
Yeah.
And if the conversation goes well, of course we'll meet up
Yeah, of
in the
course.
real world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, technically we could have done this on Zoom,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so much can be achieved remote. So I think those questions that they are asking are valid questions. We must have answers for them. I think I have found exactly the contrary. I found Gen Z the most optimistic, the brightest generation that I have seen so far
Yeah.
in my 50 years. So I have actually never been as hopeful for India as I am today, simply because of this population. We invest behind, I think our early spring, which is our early stage fund, if I'm not mistaken, at least 2 or 3 of those companies are run by Gen Z founders. At least 3 of those companies are selling products to Gen Z. I mean, that's not an accident. We believe in this generation. We believe in their purchasing power. We believe in their ability to discern better products and services. And that's the opportunity we see,
Yeah.
of building products and services that suit their questioning mindset.
Yeah. So I think Raja, you mentioned about like working with Gen Zs. So today that you're working with them, like, do you come across them saying some Gen Z slangs? Because like as a Gen Z, we are like, oh my god, I don't vibe with this. This is not my thing. I'm not gonna do this. So like, how do you like tackle that? Like,
I try my best to learn it. I try my best to use it.
oh my god, that's such a slay.
Yeah, I think look, I mean, I think that's not new again.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have to talk to Gen Zs, I would say, hey, we all did it. We all had our own language. We all had our own words that we felt
Yeah.
were unique to us.
Yeah.
I think it's just part of youth culture. And it's to learn from. My biggest problem is that the slang today keeps changing and I'm never on top of it.
Yeah.
And when I use something, my daughter says, hey, that's so dad. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
Okay. I think you briefly touched upon this topic, but again, I just want to like have a discussion on this. It's said that Gen Z doesn't have a business wardrobe. The clothes they wear are just completely different what millennials were wearing or like Gen X was wearing at work. They might just wear Crocs or Birkenstocks at office and just like show up. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think I love it. Actually, the casualization of workwear is the best thing that I've seen happen.
Yeah, I love it
I
too.
worked in Deutsche Bank and it's a super stiff,
Yeah.
formal European bank. And there were only 2 people in all of Asia who refused to wear a tie. One was me and the other was the head of Asia Pac.
Okay.
He
That
was
gave you confidence.
Yeah, I mean, that gave me confidence. It allowed me a liberty. Of course, people always felt, oh, this is a marketing guy, so he's a bit different.
Yeah.
But I abused that throughout. I used to wear jeans to work. Can you believe it? I used to wear jeans to bank.
Yeah. That's,
But I think the whole casualization trend is a real trend.
Yeah.
It's happening all over the world.
yeah.
In the US, you walk on the streets of US, 90% of people are wearing sneakers.
Yep.
You see actually in New York, on Wall Street, you see people wearing a full suit and wearing a sneaker.
Yeah.
I think this is fabulous. I think this has come from street culture. It's come from young people asking questions.
Yeah.
Why should I be uncomfortable at work? Why do I need to wear formal clothes in a hot country like India? These are good questions.
Yeah.
At least for us, we are investing behind these trends.
Yeah.
We are investors in this company called Kava. I'm actually wearing a Kava sweatshirt right
Yeah.
now, which is run by 2 Gen Z girls and 23 years old, building for the Gen Z. They're building better products in the space of athleisure. And coming from this trend of casualization, right? We are investors in Hope, which is a pain relief and recovery range of products. The founders are going to slap me for this. I think they're slightly older than Gen Z, but don't hold me to that. But think Twinkle and Saharsh are building this range which is designed for people who are more active. And that again comes from this generation that we are working with, right? They're more active, they're more sporty, they're more concerned about fitness. I mean, in all the stereotypes you read, why can't we read the good ones? Why can't we look at them and learn from them? Why, I mean, look, my generation was a really couch potato generation, right? I mean, we were not really as interested in fitness as the Gen Z is today. I think that's something we can learn from them. And I feel this whole the athleisure casualization trend you mentioned is also coming from it's coming from a good place. It's not just about informal clothing. It's also about a more active lifestyle. And I think we can learn from that.
I think when you talk about like Gen Z or like in general, like people being more active, I think as a Gen Z, I would prefer to like network with someone over a game of a pickleball as opposed to going for a conference in my formal clothes, feeling awkward with that name tag. So I think that way, I think it's very refreshing to see like how they're changing certain notions about a concept as simple as networking, right? Which is always associated with like hotel, you go there and like, get some snacks, get some freebies and come back.
Yeah, no, I personally think it's a good thing. I see this culture has now even steeped into corporates. I see lots of people wearing sneakers. Maybe you can't do it in a bank, but you should try. I would tell everybody working in corporates, I always push the envelope of what is allowed, and I got away with it. So I think you can too. I think you should be comfortable in what you wear. Of course, the clothes you wear is also a statement. I feel corporate world is going to change dramatically from a clothing perspective, from Kawa's perspective and from Early Spring's perspective. I hope so. I believe that more and more people are going to embrace casualization in their clothing and their shoes, and that's a good thing. I don't see this as bad at all.
No, I'm all in for it. All in for sneakers.
I think I've worn a tie twice in my life, and I've regretted it. I mean, it's some really horrible human being devised it. It's an instrument of torture. I don't think anyone in their right minds will want to wear a tie.
When I was at law firm, I used to only wear black and white, like white shirt, because I used to appear in the court. This one time I happened to wear like some navy blue pants, and the partner called me in the office and she's like, "Oh, you can't wear these in office." So I'm just so happy. Ever since I moved to a startup, my wardrobe has changed. It has a lot more color to it. So I'm happy about it. I'm all in for it.
Recently I was invited by a law firm to speak to their to speak at their town hall and speak to all their team members. And you'll be surprised. I saw a lot of people wearing casual stuff.
I think it's
because it's simple. Do you want young people to work for you? If you want young people to work for you, you have to create a culture where they feel welcome. The stiffer you are, you will reject young people. Now, this law firm, one of their objectives is to hire young talent. They go to universities, they have to fight with other law firms. So they are saying, hey, we are an open culture, we are friendly
open
people.
No policy.
You can wear informal clothes on Friday. As far as you don't have a client meeting, you don't have to be formally dressed. They are being forced to change simply because if you have to work with young people, then you have to learn to work with them. And I think it's a good thing. I think if you go back to a law career, I suspect you will see a lot of changes.
I'm sure. Okay, so with everything we spoke about Gen Z, do you think brands today need to rethink like whatever they're doing today, especially because the consumer is Gen Z?
Yes, for sure. For sure. So we in Spring believe that, brands today have to become creators. They're not just brands. It's not a one-way engagement. All engagement with today's young consumer is two-way. And hence for that, you actually have to become a creator. Today, brands have the opportunity to become influencers. Brands have an opportunity to actually become partners for these young folks. But you have to be authentic. I think the biggest challenge is many of the brands I see are using the language, they're using the slang, but they don't mean it. I think culturally they have not changed, but they're just trying to be cool. Like when I see large legacy brands trying to be cool, I'm like, dude, you're not cool. You're just not cool at all. I feel this has to come in a very authentic manner, and which is why we are so excited about many of the D2C founders that we are backing.
Yeah.
Because I feel that whether it's a Hoop, whether it's a Kava, the ability of these founders to connect to young people is way superior than a corporate who insists that you should wear a suit and come to work 5 days a week.
Yeah. What do you think about like the how Gen Z today is making these buying decisions? Like, just to give you an example, I would rather discuss with my friends like which sunscreen to buy today, or maybe like see a creator that I follow on Instagram talk about it, give their feedback, candid feedback, of course, not a sponsored one. And then like that's how my decisions are today, like, shaped. What do you think about this, like Gen Z trusting a TikTok or an Instagram reel as opposed to talking to a sales guy and then doing a purchase? So
No, this is the reality. This is the
no,
reality.
this is somewhere I read on this BCG report that came out very recently. But again, because you work with these brands and founders, I wanted to like understand from you, what do you feel about this?
No, this is true. What you're saying is absolutely, which is the same point I made about brands becoming creators, brands learning to engage with their consumers. It is no longer, you just can't say something and leave it there. I think you have to remember that Gen Zs will question more. This is what makes them annoying for lots of people at my age. They will question. They will look at the back of the pack. They're more discerning. They're more concerned about fitness. And I'm telling you, large companies in India, multinationals, have been caught napping. They didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
They are still selling trash. They're still selling high sugar food and beverage products. Many of these brands and many of these companies, Preeti, I believe, are going to become irrelevant in the days to come. And that's our single biggest reason to back D2C brands being built by Indian founders. Because I think they understand the pulse of the questions that Gen Z is asking. They are creating better products. They are able to engage with their consumers more simply because they're more authentic.
Yeah. They're building a trust.
They're building trust.
Yeah.
And I think they have many of these founders are either Gen Z or just out of Gen Z.
Yeah.
And I think they understand this world way better than legacy companies can.
Yeah, and also I think they're focusing a lot more on founder-led marketing.
Yeah.
That really helps.
That's simply because, like I said, right, I think the Gen Z wants authenticity.
Yeah, I want to see the face behind my brand.
And I want to know who you are and what
Yeah.
you believe in. Which is why I said, if somebody is saying our culture is cooked and we are a hateful place, say it. It's good. Make sure at least the people who are joining or applying know that this is a hateful place. I don't want to work here.
Yeah.
And I feel the same goes for brands. I think Gen Z is demanding more transparency.
So I think, Raja, you have your investment thesis at Spring, and you also shared a lot of experience working with these D2C founders. So do you have any tactical advice for someone who is building in this like space, like in D2C segment, and especially catering to Gen Z?
So I wouldn't couch it as advice. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think that's not a Gen Z word. But let me just share what I think and what at least I have learned.
Yeah.
I just feel one, like I said earlier as well, take more risks. Defense never won a sports game. You have to take risks. And of course, we have to create a culture where risk-taking and failure is accepted. I think take care of your life outside work. I feel that being a founder is very stressful. Like the last 6 years, I have felt stress that I've never felt before. There are days in which you think everything is going to shut down. There are rejection days where you feel extremely low. Obviously, a corporate career, you're insulated. So I would say, be prepared for those days. Again, I almost said advice. My learning is that co-founders help. The worst days in Spring in the last 6 years are the days I have been most thankful that I have Arun and Vineet on my side. They are the ones who call me and say, forget it, have a drink, don't worry about it. It's okay if they didn't
That's
come our way.
heartwarming.
Yeah, and I feel you need those kind of co-founders. I see a lot of husband-wife, brother-sister teams coming out.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel that having that mutual trust and understanding helps. Don't take work back with you. Find ways to break away from work.
Yeah. Which is difficult.
It's difficult, but
Yeah.
you have to do it.
That unplugging.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to do it. I heard something about Dhoni from one of the cricketers, which I found fascinating. Apparently, his dressing room after matches was always open. The door was always open. Not his dressing room, his hotel room, sorry.
Yeah.
And you could come in.
Yeah.
But he had one condition. You couldn't discuss cricket.
Cricket.
You
Yeah.
could not discuss the game. You could not discuss someone's what's happening tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
If it's in the middle of a game, it was open to films, it was open to life, it was open to discuss your families.
Yeah.
If you had to discuss cricket with him, you had to fix time with him.
Yeah.
You had to say, hey, MS, I want to speak about the game. And he would say, okay, let's meet for 15 minutes at 9 p.m. I find that fascinating. I'm not able to do it for myself.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's hard, but we try.
Yeah.
You know, we try, but you know, like I think most spring after evenings dissolve into work
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I would say we try to stay away from it. I think it's important to have that little bit of space
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
where you can have a friendly conversation, where you
Yeah.
can find whether you're playing a game. I think sports helps a lot, and a
Yeah.
lot of Gen Z, like you said, right?
I think I came across your LinkedIn post, which I related to a lot. You went to some art event. Very recently, I also went to an art event just to unplug, just to get like a lot more creativity. So I think this also helps a lot to
Absolutely.
break.
Absolutely. And that is why I feel there is so much more to life than just work.
That's true.
Yeah, and I really feel the richer your life is, the better you will be at work.
Yeah.
And I feel it's a productivity hack, it's a secret, where if you give people the freedom and the space and the support to have a life outside work, they will be way superior at work than otherwise.